So today we are here with Daniel. You are with analyzemyairbnb.com, and I do want to talk about your website, but I have a lot of other stuff I want to talk about. So thanks for being here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Airbnb, and we're going to talk about your kind of journey through a lot of this. And I think you have an interesting story because you kind of first started out as an Airbnb host. Is that right?
Yeah, I have kind of an interesting story about how I heard to Airbnb until when I started working at Airbnb. It takes place over about 4 months. In January 2013, my roommate, who's not my roommate anymore, told me about Airbnb. And that was kind of how I traveled anyways, or I tried to travel. It was always in hotels, but I tried to go into the more cutty streets and get more authentic food. So he told me about this, and instantaneously it was like, that's a winner for sure. So I applied to the company, and I got an interview. And I got interviewed at another company, and Airbnb said no. This other company said yes. So I took the job with the other company. But I stayed in touch with Airbnb because as soon as you walked in, there's just something magical about it. You're like, this is not... And keep in mind, I'm a CPA, and I was doing accounting at the time, and I was doing public accounting at the time, so it was like very much like my first job was they stuck me in a janitor closet. I'm walking to the client. This was when I first started working. But I walk into the client, and someone says Danny to me, and I turn around, and they stuck a picnic table in the janitor closet, and they shoved all the accountants in there. Oh. So this was my old job, and then I go to Airbnb, and I'm like, whoa.
So is it weird because it's like younger people and like just
it's younger back? People. There's not a single office. There's conferences, but no offices. Everyone's out. It's like if you've seen like Silicon Valley with the people with the razor scooters and chilling on balls and working. Yeah. I was not happy at the other company. So I came back to Airbnb, did the interviews. They eventually they offered me the job, and it was an easy yes. Oh, and through that, I became a host, or I became a guest, not a host, a guest. I couldn't become a host until August because I had to convince the 3 roommates to do it, and I did that through explaining to them that it would pay for all utilities and all house cleaning and all olive oil, things like that. We had like a doctor from Germany was our first guest, and then we've been doing it ever since.
And that sounds like the more traditional way that Airbnb, I guess, was first imagined, that people have apartments and houses in cool parts of the country, and then they would rent out a couch or a spare bedroom or something,
Yeah, the first on Ralph Street, Brian, Nate, and Joe, it was Brian and Joe at the time, rented out air mattresses. Those were the first 3 guests.
Right.
So I classed it up and offer a couch.
Yeah.
But I have a monopoly on this market. I mean, I charge $100 a night for my couch, and there's no people with couches. But also, it's a review-based system, so you got reviews. And so if you're a traveler coming who wants to meet locals, then... And North Beach is a great neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean, currently we're talking to you in San Francisco. Yeah, we're in, it's North Beach, right down the street is Market Street, and this is a really great... part of San Francisco. So $100 to stay right here
is amazing.
That's a good deal.
It's incredible.
Yeah, Chinatown, Fisherman's Wharf,
Yep.
Financial districts.
That's right.
Everything's right here. It's crazy.
It's marinas right down there, the pier.
Yeah.
And then all the foreigners think us Americans go around and shoot each other. So I have a police station just up the block. I'm sure you guys noticed all the police cars.
Right? Yeah.
Now, people that work for Airbnb, like when you work there, do a lot of people who work there are they also hosts? I've always wondered if people eat their own dog food kind of thing,
When I was there was always a few pushes where the CEO, specifically Brian, would try and get people to host. I would say of the employees who regularly host, this is an estimate, but probably relatively accurate. I'd say maybe 10 to 15% are regular hosts.
Yep.
I would say 40% have hosted at least once, whether it be an employee coming to town, because that's an option. Just show to Airbnb employees if you're an Airbnb host. So when Airbnb says 90% of our employees are hosts, or if they ever were to say that, you can remember this conversation.
So then the big question I have is like, Airbnb sounds like a pretty cool job to have. Why would you leave that job?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, that's a good question. I love the company, love the accounting team. The job though was still accounting, and didn't like it.
Yeah.
It was boring. It was boring. You can't. Yeah. I was kind of ready to leave, so I looked at Airbnb actually, and business development, and a few other places to see if I could maybe finagle my way in there. It was possible, But it was one of those things where it was like, the timing's not right now, but there's these projects that are going on, and so like in 2 months, in 3 months, we might have that opening. And I didn't want to play that game where 2 months go by and then like 12 months goes by and I'm still in the same position. And so it was a tough decision, but one that I'm very happy I made.
No, I mean, a lot of our friends who live here in San Francisco, we see them kind of jumping from company to company because there's so much energy here. Mm-hmm. You kind of want to go to the more aggressive, exciting company. I mean, that's what I've seen, I mean,
2 years,
I mean, we've had friends leave Google. I'm like, why would you leave a job at Google? And they're like, because it got boring, I want to go work at this other company that's younger and fresher.
I want to start my own company, those things.
It happens a lot. There's so many startups. It's exciting to work for an early stage startup. When I got in Airbnb, I feel like I was just a few months late from like the original Airbnb employees. I was the 700th employee that was my class. But it's gotten bigger, so it went from 700 to probably 2,000 when I left. And so it gets a lot. It was different floors. That was what really made the company less exciting. When you go to different floors, you start seeing people less, and now they're at like 3 floors. So there's something special about working with like 50 people, 100 people.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, because after, you start to hit, a 700,000, 2,000, it's just like a big, like a little corporation, departments and all that. Okay, so then you left, and I don't know, is that when you started to travel, or have you? Or
I've done traveling. Yeah, I've been to. I went to Cabo, and I went to Colombia. I went to Colombia. 3 places in Colombia.
Cool.
For a while, and then I've been to trips in the U.S., different states in the U.S. New York, L.A. Stagecoach. I went down for same venue as Coachella, but country music.
Yep.
Next weekends. Yeah.
Cool.
That's great.
And then always stay in Airbnbs and people's houses.
Always stay in Airbnbs. Yeah, I think pretty much since I found out about Airbnbs, I was always.
Are you more like, I want the private, like I want everything, or I want to stay in someone's house where someone's there to talk to?
I do the rooms.
Really?
Yeah. I prefer to stay with a local.
Because do you actually want to talk to people, or because it's cheaper?
Both. But I do want to talk to people, although I've noticed, and as I'm a host and as you guys are a host, I know you're doing the whole place, but if you did a room, like you understand that if you're hosting, they're not always interested in talking all the time. So I wish there was like a setting on Airbnb saying like, this is a social host.
No, that's true. That's true. Because some people, they're like, here's your thing. Let's
see. I think that's one reason why, I mean, also we're a couple, but we always get like, I just want the whole place
to myself.
Just give me the keys and then see you later. But if there was a check mark that said, I'll be in the house too, but I don't really talk to people, I'm like, that's great. That's who I want.
Yeah,
I would probably stay in a private room if I knew I didn't have to really interact with people.
Yeah, right. Like, it's a huge thing. I don't know why that. I don't know the business reason behind why they're not doing that. It was kind of talked about at some point while I was there, but it's never been. Right. It's never been. The closest is business travel. This is a business ready listing.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess just because it's kind of might be. I don't know, like, how could anyone really guarantee that they're not going to talk to you? Right?
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah. Like, what's the level of being non-social? Like, you're like, I'll say hi to you, but I won't.
Although, I say that, and, I mean, I do like people. I mean, I guess it would be cool to be able to talk to someone about the neighborhood. And
right, sure.
Like that, so. Okay, so can we talk about then some of the things that you've been doing after Airbnb? Like, one of those things that I understand is you're kind of property managing places here in San Francisco, is that right?
Yeah. I left Airbnb and did Airbnb property management. Mm-hmm. I switched from accounting, though, to more. It was a very small startup, so I was the second employee at the time. So it was more business development, but there was also, I ran the marketing and hired some employees to respond to inquiries and things like that, get a maintenance person. But I did that for about a year. It was a lot of fun, and they grew a lot, and the political environment in San Francisco is a bit harsh.
Because of the, supposedly taking rentals off the market, affordable
like housing stock,
right?
Off
Housing
the market.
stock.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that for a second because rarely do I see this. So, obviously, my opinion is probably biased, but I haven't heard someone argue the opposite of what I'm about to argue, and it's rarely covered in the news. So, I'm in the believer that Airbnb might take a few units off the housing, but not significant enough to make it a big deal like it's been passing all these laws. And the reason is, so there's 7,000, if you think of it this way, there's 7,000 Airbnbs in the city. So that's all Airbnbs, including mine, right? So clearly not taking off any housing rental, but if we say all 7,000 are taking off a unit for that would otherwise be rented long term, there's 350,000 rentals in the city. So if all 7,000 are taking houses off the unit, that's represents what, 1.5, like 1% of the units. So it's still, that can't be the big factor.
Right.
So
Right.
Well, I mean, like we lived here, and people were talking back then. They're just, it's not, San Francisco doesn't allow people to build up. They just need to build more housing stock because, I mean, that's the real problem.
that's a real problem. Yeah.
And people don't want, a condo going next to their, multi-million-dollar, awesome little, townhouse. So
Yeah.
that's the issue.
And the housing they are building is like the really expensive $4,000 studio in Soma.
Right.
Like really expensive.
Right, like
It's not affordable.
a lot of builders
people.
don't want to build affordable housing. They want to build the awesome,
Yeah.
super expensive housing. Every community they need to talk about this stuff. People got to debate it and just figure out.
Yeah, it's definitely a great
what
conversation.
works. It's a good thing to talk about. But it is interesting how different cities react to, I guess, the professional Airbnb companies that are, coming in and managing. They basically have like a hotel that's spread out across, a town. And part of me feels like maybe the anti-Airbnbs being, funded by, I guess, hotels and traditional hotels that feel very threatened by that because these companies aren't paying, the same kind of taxes, maybe?
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I know they paid in San Francisco.
Oh, they did, yeah.
But I also know that at one point, one of the hotel chains, the big ones, actually offered, as I think through credit card points, they actually offered an Airbnb gift card through the credit, like the bonus program or something.
wow.
So it would signify that they don't at all think Airbnb is a competitor, which was interesting. It might have been short-lived, but at one point, definitely that was a thing.
Right.
I mean, we talk about it on our podcast a lot about people who do Airbnb in rural areas it's versus urban. I think it's different.
So different.
Like where we are, our county, our rural county embraces Airbnb. I mean, they're happy we do it because we pay them taxes. We pay 10%, 10.5% on everything we make off of our place because they allow us to register and it's a business, and so we're putting money into the county's treasury.
Yeah. And it's a vacation rental market, you said.
It is a market. Where we live, it's very much established market.
But that's the one thing I wish Airbnb would do, and I'm sure it's a political thing why they don't do this, why we can't add a tax. Why we can't collect the tax.
We can't
Interesting, yeah.
See, so I'm taking the tax out of my base payout. Like it's like on HomeAway, you're like it's 10.5% added. So they pay me that tax on top of my base rate, and then I just pay the state and the county.
And then Airbnb just
Airbnb doesn't
right
do
because
that.
they don't. Airbnb, I guess, doesn't want to create an atmosphere where taxes are a normal thing.
But I have to pay the taxes.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would venture to guess that most people probably don't pay taxes, whether they're ignorant of the law or they're just willfully ignoring it.
Right.
But here they collect taxes.
Yes.
But in your situation, you wouldn't want to. You wouldn't want to either boost up your price because including the tax because now you're uncompetitive.
The base price looks
but you also
bad,
probably wouldn't want to say in the listing, which I've seen. Hey, by the way, there's an extra 10% tax you're going to have to pay me.
Yeah.
Which I would hate as a renter.
Yeah.
So it's hard for us to do it because we're like...
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, we didn't even charge a cleaning fee because we just felt it was like, it's nickel and diming people, but we finally...
Well, now we're paying a cleaner, so
it's relented.
We kind of need to...
Yeah.
And we only charge people half the cleaning fee that we pay because we're still, like, inching up.
Huh, interesting.
We want to be competitive, so...
Okay, sorry. So, I mean, going back to what you're doing now, so you currently still doing that, helping run?
So no, I left in July, and I started my own 2 companies, but they overlap, and it's Airbnb Property Management. and it's here in San Francisco. I'm doing that to because I enjoy it, but also to stay up on all the different. Airbnb's always running different experiments and programs and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing Airbnb listing optimization, which is kind of a new service. It's essentially SEO, if you're familiar with that, for Airbnb, trying to get you higher in search results, trying to get more clicks on your listing, and once they're in the listing, trying to get people to reserve more.
Yep.
And so I've been doing that since I went to, obviously with my own listing as a host, but when I was at Guest Hop, every now and then it'd be a lagging listing, and I'd go in and I'd make these changes, and then after a while I kind of picked up on what changes would elicit the best changes in rank. Some of these listings I would literally go in and change, and that day it would get a booking. And that was like that was like a light bulb. Like, it makes sense. Right. There are certain things. Everybody's making money if you get booked. So if you have better listing, you're going to get booked more. They're going to like you more. Right. And it's a lot review based also.
So this isn't stuff that you learn directly in the company, because I would think that would be proprietary information.
Like when you're at Airbnb.
This is just stuff that you just kind of figured out from knowing the company and how it works.
It's definitely stuff I figured out through mostly after Airbnb while optimizing listings. My own listings as a property manager.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's basically what what your one company does, is that people can go and you'll help them figure out how to best optimize their listings so they show up higher in ranking. Is that correct?
Yeah, and some hosts pay me to make all the changes as well.
Cool.
Which I think that's actually more of the value rather than having to do it all yourself, because Airbnb is kind of complicated. It's like a video game. It gets, every year there's different controls and it gets more and more complicated. I play Sega Genesis, or used to, so I never got into all the new gaming systems, but when I've taken it up, I'm always like, I'm done.
There's too much.
So there are two paths I want to go here. One is, so when you're managing other people's places here in town, in San Fran, at Cisco, are these people just that have like an extra apartment and say go for it, or are they traveling and they just want you to do it for a week at a time?
There's people who are so I call it part-time business listings, which are people who travel a lot, whether it's vacation or actually business. It means gone a few times a month. Mm-hmm. So limited calendar availability, but no end in date. So they're always traveling a lot, whether it be work or travel. And then there's part-time leisure listings, which is a chunk of time. I'm traveling for 6 months. I'm traveling for 2 weeks. So there's a definite time, but open calendar availability. And then the last is full-time, which is like there's an extra unit downstairs that they don't use, or I'm gone. And anything more than 12 months I consider full-time. I'm gone on a rotation for 12 months, or I have an extra house.
And so you'll take care of all of it, and you'll clean it for 25% or something, or what's it?
It varies. Yeah. Typically 15 to 20% of the nightly rate, not including cleaning fee, and that includes everything. I try and be full service. I think people want a property manager so they don't have to do anything. So I do everything, including if there's any maintenance that needs to be done. I have some people who can get that maintenance done at a reasonable rate. And
are you doing it under like your own user, or they create one and then give you access to their user?
I create them their own account, or I use their existing account. Mm-hmm. That's what I do. Because if they ever wanted to leave my service and take it over themselves, I want them to have their own account. They have their own reviews and all that.
Gotcha. Now, is Airbnb, are they doing that, or do you think they'll do that where I can have my account and I can give someone like you access, but you don't have access to like the money part? Or
they already do that.
Oh, they do?
Yeah. Have you heard of additional not additional, is it called additional hosts? I think it is called additional hosts.
Is that new?
It's pretty new.
It's
pretty new.
I think I heard about it,
months.
But yeah.
So we could give someone, if we had someone like you, where we're like, we want you to manage this while we're away. You can sign in, but not like change my bank account information.
I wouldn't even sign in. I would sign into my own account.
Oh,
and you give like a token to him.
That's cool.
And I don't see any of your bank information. I don't see any personal information. I essentially only see when you hover over, I think, home and then manage listings.
Yeah.
That's all I get. I can click manage listings, calendar, settings.
See, I think the way that I heard about it in the conversation, and I don't know if this is true, that people were wanting for like a travel agent could book one of their clients into a place, but under their own
I have heard of that.
name, so that way that would give travel agents, more ability rather than just a hotel.
Yeah. I have heard of that, but I don't know much about it.
Okay.
It sounds similar though. It's like giving a third party limited access.
Right, like
on
giving them a token that then gives them
Yeah.
limited access.
Yeah, all the time you get people. I'm an executive assistant booking for my boss, which is against Airbnb's terms of service, but
Why is
you
it?
can't book for someone else.
But that's what we were talking about,
Right.
the third party booking.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that they're starting to let that
Yeah.
happen. Like you should be able to do that. Yeah.
But you can only be. It's not meant for property managers at all because you only allowed one person. So my account, I can only have.
Gotcha.
I can only be additional host on one.
I see.
So yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Now, when you're property managing, I mean, you're doing all the questions. You're talking to people. If they're like, "We can't find the door," you're like, "Just
Right.
you."
Yeah, right now it's a small enough operation. I just got started in July, and I don't want it to get that big. The dirty secret of these Airbnb property managers is that the bigger the company gets, the worse experience it is for both the host and the guest. That's it right now. Someone might figure it out, but right now, and I know from first-hand experience, the bigger the company, the worse it is for both.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
when we went to Colombia as
We went to
well
Colombia.
a year ago, and we
I've been
stayed with a guy that had 70
Listings?
properties.
Yeah.
So I mean, we assume he ran his one of these companies. And the only way I can imagine he can do that is he has
Just
all big staff, I
like
guess.
25 people running around the
Yeah.
You can,
city.
I would say 20, maybe 30 listings max for one person can handle.
Yes.
So he definitely had help.
Like on a
Yeah.
Friday night, are you just like constantly answering, like, take the metro to this station, the metro or whatever.
Well, no, I mean you can imagine I've figured it out pretty good so that these situations don't happen.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, there's certain in the booking process there are certain times where it's most opportune to give a guest information.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've kind of figured that out, and it's pretty. It runs the most complaints, or not complaints, but issues is like Wi-Fi's out
Yeah.
I've
or
been there.
clogged toilets as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you'll have someone go over, or will you run?
Or I'll
over,
go over,
you'll just
yeah,
go over.
yeah. I mean, I work from home, so usually it's like when people are arriving at 3, they're like, "Hey, I got here, but the Wi-Fi's not working."
Yeah.
And so I'll go over,
Which is
and
very important.
usually the Wi-Fi is just not plugged in or something
Right,
like that.
yeah, yeah.
So I've learned now to talk them through it. First step, let's just make sure it's plugged in.
Right.
And oftentimes,
That'll save you a trip, like
Yeah.
across town, right?
Yeah.
So now, this is a really basic question, but like, since you do manage so many people's, how are you, like, you can only be signed into the mobile app on one account, so you're not like getting those like push notifications on your, or what, are you getting text messages? Like, how do you?
so if you have an Android, you can sign into multiple accounts on your phone.
Only on Android.
Only on Android. I don't have Android. I have Apple, so it is an issue.
Yeah.
But I register my number in the account,
Yeah.
and so I get text messages,
There you go.
and I also have the emails forwarded,
Right.
so I keep track of it like that.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
easy. Because we love the app, so it's like giving us those notifications instantly, so you can
Yeah.
write to someone right away.
Yeah. Okay, so then the other business you have is the optimization, or you're helping people to get their best its listing possible, so they can get the most amount of its bookings. So I know that that's a service you provide, but maybe we could kind of generally talk about some of the strategies that you use, if that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, we
was
can
on your blog.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about specific strategies. I think
Yeah.
the value is more so in having someone. It's your time rather than. I mean, anyone out there can read my blog and get.
Yep.
I post once a week about
Okay.
a actionable hosting tip. So and the information's out there for anyone.
So then why don't we do that for
Yeah.
people that are self-starters? They can do this themselves. If they're interested, we'll put a link to it at your site, and then they can contact you. So let's go through the things I was writing off of at your site. So one is, why, how, and when should you respond to what people write about you? Your reviews, because to me, I'm always like, I'm never going to write. If someone says I loved it, I'm like, I'm not going to write back. But you say that there's actually times to write back.
Yeah. This is a good one because I learned about this. Actually, I can't take credit for this. I learned about this through another host at a prior, I think the Airbnb Open in San Francisco, so a couple years ago. And you're referring to a blog post I wrote a few weeks back, and it's been my most popular blog post. I guess because people I think they don't know they can respond to reviews. But once you talk through it, I think most people think, oh, that kind of makes sense. So what I do is I respond not to every review, but if it just says, hey, I had a good time, or a short sentence, I don't respond to those. But the times you should respond to it are when they're extremely long. So when they're extremely long, they get cut off first. And one of my running themes throughout the website is guests don't read. So you need to make it very, very easy for them. So if a guest had a great experience and wrote a huge, long review, so to a guest looking at that, they're either, if they look at that one, a long review usually signifies negative, or it could also be positive. So they're going to look at it, and it's not negative, because if it was negative, they'd probably read. So if it's positive, and they're probably not going to read all of it. So what I recommend in that case is respond to that review and call out one or two specifics that they call out that you want to advertise. It's a selling point, and call that out in the response, but a very brief response. So that's one way.
So it's like TLDR, and then you just put a tiny little thing, like too long didn't read, and so here's a little brief thing.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I usually just say hi, guest name.
Yeah.
Glad you found the location so central. That's a big hit, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. And then also what that allows you to do is if you do get a negative review, which everyone accepts you to get negative reviews.
They don't want a negative review.
Yeah, you're able to respond to that negative review without calling attention to it.
Right. I mean, now I have done that. We've never gotten a negative star rating, but we have gotten where people say I liked it, but there was this one thing I didn't like. Those I will respond to by just saying we fixed it, or I mean, is that something that you would say would be good?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Do? Just so it's not just hanging,
Right.
Yeah, if someone says the water went out and it was a cold shower, definitely respond to that. But it still is a negative, and you're still drawing attention to it. Whereas you could draw attention to positives as well, and then not the negatives.
Interesting.
Not as much the negatives.
That's a great idea.
Cool.
So when I first started hosting, I hosted my room, and I had a girl rent it out while I was gone for the weekend, and she said it smelled. It smelled so bad she left.
Wow.
And I didn't think, I had my roommate come in as soon as she left and smell it. He said he didn't smell anything, but I don't know. I think you see I have the shoes here. I think she maybe is not used to that, or I don't know what, but she said it smelled so bad she left. She left me a negative review.
Wow.
And I responded to it. That was before I was responding to reviews, and so it was just like this eyesore, like this long negative review, and then this long response, which is not the right thing to do.
Right.
Yeah, that's tough.
To try and take the negative and then push it towards other good things that are happening,
Yeah.
in the space.
Yeah, like I got, I got candles, whatever.
Yeah.
How did you fix it?
Right.
Rather than
Exactly.
definitely don't be defensive.
That's what we say. We fixed it this way.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, you were saying that on your Airbnb listing, there are 3 most important parts to it. So can we go over those?
Yeah. The 3 most important parts are in this order as well, are the cover photo, which is the photo you see as a guest when you're scrolling through that. Airbnb calls it P2. It's the second page. So there's 3 pages till you can reserve to book. So this listing page is P2. It's that photo that you see when you're scrolling with the map on the right and the listings on the left. The second one is the title. And then the third one is when you click on the listing, there's an about this listing, I think it says.
Yeah.
And that's if guests do read, that's all the way at the top, and they only let you do 200 characters or so.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 things. And if it was a percentage, though, it'd be like pictures 70%, title 20%, and about me 10%.
Okay.
And the reason is because it's eye-catching. You want an eye-catching first photo, so guests click on it. The first photo, the cover photo, is supposed to be purely to elicit click. Same with the title.
Yep. Yeah, and I noticed that. 2 things. Number one is just some people don't know that, and I'm just always surprised when I'll look at someone's listing and it was done on a bad cell phone and they're blurry.
Yeah.
Very strange. Or they don't
Title's
show
bad.
you the bathroom. I mean, it's just like, come on, people.
They're
Well, you're running a business when you have an Airbnb host. You're now a businessman or businesswoman, and a lot of people though aren't business minded, business savvy, and so they don't even think of it. And so when this is obvious to you, people don't.
Yeah.
Another thing is they'll say like 3-bedroom house in San Francisco. Well, it's like they already narrowed it down probably to 3 bedrooms, and they're already in San Francisco, so that provides no additional information for the guests to click on your listing.
Yeah.
And the other thing is too, and this doesn't have specifically about what we're talking about, but I noticed on Airbnb there's a lot of like zombie listings, like where someone either put a listing up, but they aren't really taking bookings, and then there might be only one photo. And part of me feels like they only did that because Airbnb gives you a credit if you like
list your place.
At your place. So maybe they just did a real quick list, get the $50, and then it's just a listing up there that's kind of clogging up the search.
Yeah, interesting. I guess I've learned how to maybe narrow down my search where I don't see too many of them, but that makes sense. A lot of people sign up, and then every now and then I go on and check my rank on my listing, and I still see my roommates and my ex-roommates who's gone, his listing. So their 2 listings are there. They're lower in the search results, but they're still there. Yeah, and they have a few reviews each, so they're a year old. Right. You're like, oh, it looks nice. But I think eventually Airbnb removes you from the system. They put you on probation if you do certain things that are not profitable to Airbnb, essentially.
Right. So the things we've talked about so far are the things that make your listings look good and draw people's eyes. But you've actually talked about things that you can do to move yourself in the rankings. Is that right?
Yeah.
So things like what?
Yeah. So think about. So Airbnb is essentially Google in this place. And what listings do you think? So what I'm trying to say is, if you take a step back and think about it, all these changes would kind of make sense to you. It essentially goes down to what makes Airbnb the most money. So if you're an active listing and you have a lot of reviews and good reviews, you're going to be high in the search results because you're making Airbnb money. Another thing is updating your listing, whether it be the calendar. Some people say daily calendar changes get you high. I'm not sure if that's the case, but if you connect it to a third-party pricing tool, which I recommend, they do that automatically. But even going in and changing cover photo, just changing your cover photo, testing it out from a different one, it just shows you're an active host. These are the changes. Cover photos, changing any kind of settings in your listing occasionally kind of signifies to Airbnb, okay, this person is trying to get more guests, or they're being active. And another thing is your profile. Even though it's not your listing, it signifies to Airbnb if you have a complete profile or not a complete profile. It would signify to Airbnb this person has taken extra time to fill out their full profile, including creating the BALO and whatnot.
And you just said a word that I don't think a lot of people know. The BALO is the little symbol, right? The little logo. Is that right?
Yeah. BALO is the rebrand they did in middle of 2014. That's the BALO.
Gotcha.
The kind of upside down heart.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And you can make your own little custom one.
Yeah. I think it's if you go on your profile, it says like create a BALO.
Yeah.
I think it's at create.belo.com. And you should go there and create one.
Have we done that?
Yeah, I did.
All right.
I like mine. It's cute.
So, sorry.
No, I was gonna say I know that you guys did it because I looked at it, and a lot of hosts have done it.
Yeah.
I think I had fun. I had created several of them.
Yeah.
I went back and changed it.
So, I mean, to me, though, it seems like Airbnb, there aren't a whole lot of things to differentiate places from one another. I mean, there's price. There's how quickly it respond to people. I guess it's if you cancel a lot or not, and then how well people will rate you. I mean, aren't those really the 4 things? Like,
yeah, you never want to cancel.
Absolutely,
never want to cancel. Right. But yeah, those are the 4 things, and then you can get more specific with each of those 4 things, like interior design, colors for the photos. They all work towards increasing your click-through rate, and that's another thing that increases you in the rank. If you're getting a lot of clicks, you can also save a listing. You heart it, you save a listing. The more saves you get, the more you click on those.
I'm always keeping an eye on that.
Just how many people saved it, It's cool they tell you that.
Yeah, that's kind of neat.
Yeah, it's good.
And then the other thing would be text, which actually I don't think is a big selling factor, but a lot of people overdo it and write big old blocks of text I recommend, and if I'm doing a host listing, I try and do bullet points, and I kind of take out the flowery language, and that's the last thing guests usually read. But it still is a selling point. I use it more so to set expectations. If there's, I mentioned this one in my blog post, if there's like 27 steps, or I think you guys use an example, the driveway with a lot of dirt. If there's negatives, and if you don't, sometimes like you learn it as a host, negatives, because you're familiar with your property. But if there's negatives, you want to tell them right up front, because it's not going to discourage them from booking.
If they know about it, then it's not a negative anymore. It's more negative if like they weren't expecting it, and there's a dirt driveway or something like that.
Yeah. Because they feel like they have the decision power before they book, rather than if they know this and booked,
right.
They're expecting.
I find we have quite a bit of text in it's listing, but like you said, I try and keep it more like just like factual. Like these are the things that you can expect. So when they come, I've hopefully created a picture in their mind. So we're talking about how I can move my Airbnb up in rank. So, one thing is price. Now, how important is price, since it's all based on someone's places might be more, like ours is more expensive, even though we might have the same number of bedrooms, but we feel that the quality is better, and people are renting because of that. I guess my question is like you, I'm always wondering where my Airbnb is in the ranking, and I notice some people are above me because they have a cheaper price, and I'm just wondering, is it because of the price, or is it something else? Is it because they've been on Airbnb longer?
So if you're a guest and you're searching and you don't narrow down price, probably most guests who are serious narrow down price at least a little bit. But if they don't narrow down price, so you're looking at all the listings in your area, what would make a listing go to the very top? Now, also keep in mind that search isn't static. So we both might search the same things, and different listings might appear.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Because it knows.
Because it knows your prior preferences.
Oh, interesting.
And mine too. And so, but in general, why those listings would be highest, they respond quick. You need to respond. There's a few different categories Airbnb has. One is within an hour. And I wish they would do like within 6 minutes rather than within 59 minutes.
Exactly, because I'm quick. I'm like, it's within 6 minutes too. Like,
and some people are like in a rush, so a guest is gonna message 5 or 6 maybe. Whereas if he says like responds 100% of the time in 6 minutes, he's gonna be like, I'm pretty confident about this. Saves him some time. So that's a big one. Without a doubt, there'll be review. Each one will give at least 5 reviews all the way at the top. So you need reviews, positive reviews. Those are probably the biggest things. Positive reviews have been around for a while.
Yep.
And then other negatives would be like if you've ever canceled. If you canceled, you're no way near the top.
Right. And then the other thing is, again, I don't mean to mean like you're speaking for Airbnb, but because you kind of have some experience, and you might know this, they started that it's recommended, it's prices where they'll show you it's your calendar, and if you have it's your price, and there's like these are what we recommend its prices.
Got it. Yeah.
The prices just are ridiculous for us.
Yeah.
I mean, like they're like. Half as much sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm sure people would book if I took little money. What could I don't know. It doesn't really seem very realistic,
Yeah, it's like increase your revenue by 100% by lowering your price by 50%. It doesn't make any sense, but I do know it's called smart pricing.
Right, smart pricing.
A lot of hosts have the same issue. They're like generally, I think maybe across the board, it's too low. And I don't use it. I've never used it. I've tried it out just to see what it's like, but I don't like it because they only give you those 3 options. How often do you want to host? Often, not that often, seldom, whatever that means.
Right.
And the prices adjust based on that. But so the highest price would be host seldom, but then you're probably not showing up at search. I don't know. I don't think Airbnb's not released anything if turning that on directly affects your search rank.
See, that's what I was thinking. Like, if you were willing to allow Airbnb to lower your price, then they would bump you up in the search and kind of guarantee you're going to get a booking. But
that makes sense. Airbnb's in the business of getting heads in beds, so a lot of people. Oh, yeah. Well, that's a good point. So, as a property manager, when I go to houses, usually owners of the house overvalue. And one in specific in Twin Peaks here, she has a nice house, very nice house, balcony looking over the city, but she really overvalued her house. At the beginning, she said her minimum was $600, but she thinks she get $800 a night.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so she did get $600 and even $800 for some nights, but she was booked at low, and eventually we got her down to about a $400 minimum, which is more in line. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-story place, all marble. So it was a nice place. But yeah, they overvalue. So maybe there's some psychology in there. Airbnb knows people overvalue. These prices are going to get more beds and beds and make Airbnb more money.
Yep.
But if you're trying to, there's a happy medium too. If you want to lower really low, 100% occupancy, or lower and get 80% occupancy, there's that. How much do you want to work versus make?
So let's talk about this service that you have that helps people to optimize their listing. So how does that work?
So the process is go to my website, read about it, and see if you're interested, and then send me an email. And what I'll do is I will look at every aspect of your listing and your profile, and I'll build a report based on it. And I'll send you that report, and I'll highlight out the items that directly affect your search. And then, in addition to that, and it's about a 6 to 8 page report, depending on how much work you need. In addition, I provide some recommended tools, like we just mentioned, third-party pricing tools. There's 5 of them out there, so I let you know which one I recommend. Same with electronic house manuals, and then I'm partnering up with different companies to offer discounts to folks, and so that's in the discount section there. And then if the host wants me to go in and actually do these changes, if I get access to their account, I can do a little more analysis because I have more data on the dashboard, and I'll go in and actually rearrange photos and do a different title and rearrange all the text, usually summarize it, and I keep all the original settings and text. And if I delete photos, I'll keep those too. And I'll also add captions. A lot of people don't add captions, and that's
to each photo, right?
Not to each photo, but to photos.
Sure, yeah.
People just, even if your house looks, to the host it looks they've been there, but to a guest, even if it looks like to the host standard, like this is a bedroom.
I could not agree more, because sometimes I'll go through a photos and I'm like, which bedroom is this, or what and so I just want to hear, this is the master bedroom, this is the guest bedroom.
Yeah. It was a host that I optimized his site, and he had about 80 photos, and it was a super nice house.
80 photos?
A ton of photos, yeah. And his rooms looked very similar. And so one of these articles I wrote called five Photo Tips for More Reservations, I took a screenshot of his rooms. Here they are. So these are 4 different rooms. You can tell by the...
It looks like the same room from different angles, you know?
Yeah. So this isn't good for a podcast because no one can see this, but essentially there are 4 rooms with hardwood floors, and the only real difference, same sheet, same type of bed, the only real difference in a couple of the photos is the size of the window.
Right. So that would be where it'd be good to have a caption like this is bedroom number 1.
Bedroom 1 upstairs, yeah. Right. That door to the upper right, that's the closet, or that's the bathroom, or that's the hallway. Yeah.
So some of the clients that you've actually helped have been able to get more bookings, is that right? Or I mean, it's not guaranteed, obviously, but...
It's not guaranteed, it's not guaranteed. But yeah, I measure on the hosts who allow me to actually make the changes. I measure within 7 days how much, if any, they've made in addition. And it was encouraging. One of the first hosts who I did this reporting for, he emailed me a few days later, and he'd had a listing for a while. And he emailed me a few days later after he did the changes himself, and he said, I think he called me a magic man. He's like, "Hey, Danny, you might be a magic man. I got 2 reservations and $600 within 3 days."
Now, is that because his listing was just so bad? I mean, did it start really low, so the bar was pretty low, or
his listing wasn't terrible? It wasn't terrible. It needed better photos, and the biggest thing for him was his photos. His best photos were not first, so I told him to rearrange all his photos. He had a lot of duplicates, but his listing wasn't bad. I think it was over information. And also, if you change things, anything, that's a good sign to Airbnb.
Now, you said that before, and I don't understand that because I like a listing and it seems to work. So, but you're saying we should just kind of needlessly kind of rearrange things just so Airbnb feels you're touching a listing? I don't understand that.
So for you, you're probably very high in the search rankings, and you're probably doing fine with occupancy and all that.
Okay.
So if you came to me, I wouldn't say don't needlessly change it. It's a good idea probably to change out the cover photo and see which gets more clicks, because they do give you those stats.
Interesting.
But some hosts are, if you have a really good listing and you have a lot of reviews and you've been around for a while, you're going to be high in the search results no matter what, until you start getting bad reviews.
Gotcha.
So in your case, not in everyone's case, but in the vast majority of people's cases, changing up the cover photo, whether it be because it's just a bad cover photo or because you want to test out which gets more clicks, is a good thing.
Now, where does Airbnb tell you how many clicks that cover photo gets?
They don't.
Oh, they don't.
It's very it's secret information. It's only known by a few people at the company.
Gotcha.
It's like Google's search algorithm.
Gotcha. Very
few people know. It's based on just real world experience.
Gotcha.
So I've managed thousands of reservations and hundreds of listings, maybe thousands of listings, and so you pick up trends.
Got it. So then I guess the last question is about this service. I think it's interesting. I mean, I can imagine there's someone's like, well, this sounds perfect. I want to put my place on. I'm just getting started. Can I just send you like a bit of text and like some photos, and you just figure everything out for me? Like, not I have to build it and then you fix it, but you just do it for me.
Yeah, I've had some people, I do that, but it's very much the host has to be proactive and reach out to me. Right now it's not offered, but I've had hosts come out and say, just want consulting.
Yep.
Hey, I'm thinking of buying a house.
There you go.
To rent on Airbnb. Can I just talk to you for an hour? So if you reach out to me, I do various services, but on the website it's only that report.
Cool.
But a lot of people do. Like I said, it's the value's in the time. So if someone can do the whole thing from scratch, then that probably makes sense.
Cool. I feel like I got kind of like a free consulting just talking to you right now. So this is good, you know?
Yeah, and just keep an eye on my blog. Once a week I post. That's free consulting. I want to give away as all my secrets. There's no secret. Anyone can learn this. Like I said, if they go on my blog and they invest time to do it. Because for some people, it doesn't make sense. A lot of people reach out to me and they have a $35 a night place. And it doesn't make sense for you to pay $100 and $150 to do this. So instead, I'll give them some quick tips. I'll point them to my blog and say, hey, it's probably best if you just read the blog.
And that's at analyzemyairbnb.com.
Analyzemyairbnb.com.
Cool, and we'll put a link on the blog. Thanks so much for talking to us today.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Bye.